Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Did That Happen? This week, we are discussing bongs, and I figure out where they got that name from. Come along for the ride this week as I ask, bongs, how did that happen? Okay, another episode of How Did That Happen? Back after our 1 week hiatus. Like I said on the Twitter account, I just been going through some stuff, and it's been hard to bring myself to the microphone, to be honest with you guys. As time goes on, maybe I'll share with what's going on in my life. Maybe I won't. I'm not sure. It's not like a thing I'm trying to keep from people. It's more just like some stuff I'm just don't even really know how to explain. But that being said, we are back for another episode of How Did That Happen? And this week we're talking about bongs. It should be interesting. It never really occurred to me, where bongs came from or who maybe had the first thought of bongs, but we found out some interesting things about who was smoking what and when and out of what. So yeah, without further ado, here's the episode. The first bongs in history come from a place in Russia where the tribal chiefs of the Uranian/Eurasian Scythian tribe, they smoked. They smoked out of gold bongs. This is also where we are thought to get the word cannabis. So they basically kind of made both of those, depending on who you ask. And we're gonna get into that. Let's see the word is Scythians, but it's pronounced Scythians, and they were a nomadic tribe that flourished around 900 BC, and they lived in present-day Siberia, but they traveled all around the Eurasian space, which is kind of how the cannabis started to spread, and or the idea of the word being called that, and also like the idea of how to smoke it with those bongs. But we will find out, and I found out there are so many different ways that people like smoke things. I mean, and cannabis being the driving force for a lot of these, but not always. Let's see, what else do we have here? They may also have given us the name bong as well. Like I said, they had gold bongs is the ones that they found that are thousands of years old, but they have like cannabis residue in them, and that's what the Scythians would smoke. But they spelled the word bong Bhang. Basically, this traveled through Asia, and in Asia, it's called the same thing. Bong spelled the same way in India as well. And also, the hemp that was put in the bong was called the same thing. So it kind of got a little confusing. It's like also probably back then, as that's why they called it that, was because what they were using it for, they just went by that name. Like the hemp is the bong, so we put the bong in this. Why do we need a name for this? We just call it the bong. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. But so they got passed around as a smoking device to smoke the bong in Thailand. The term bong is typically referred to as a water pipe. The first written word of a bong, usage comes from Central Asia in the 16th century. In Western China, archaeologists found some of the first pipes that were wooden and contained cannabis residue. These pipes date back to 1500 BC. These pipes were actually wooden bowls that were meant to hold hot rocks, within which cannabis was put in and kind of burned, kind of steamed, if you will. I'll post a picture on the Twitter page because it is really interesting. I mean, I still don't. I mean, I get it. It just seems like a really big waste of weed. But I guess if that's all you got and you haven't progressed to where we are now, so you got to do what you got to do. But it's basically just like crop dusting, like a way of getting high. Like they would put the cannabis over these stones and then fill an area with smoke, and you would just be in there, and that would be how you would get it. But it's important to note that early bongs did not have water in them. The first use of water in pipes was actually for tobacco. And there's a story that illustrates this point. How true is it? I mean, how true is any? There are any of these stories from 500, 600 years ago or whatever. But I'm not sure. But I'll share it with you. Around the 1600s, when the Portuguese merchants visited Bijapur in India, they brought tobacco, cigars, and pipes. And the Indian emperor named Akbar was presented with these, and he tried to smoke them, right? And so when he tried to smoke them, he said that they were too harsh, and so his physician was worried that the unfiltered smoke could be dangerous. He suggested that the smoke be purified by passing it through water before being inhaled. He then created a pipe with a water reservoir, and so the hookah pipe was born. Now, so that could be true. Like I said, I wasn't there. It just seems like a really interesting way for Indians to be like, we made the bong or whatever. I don't know. It's like, but it is also fairly possible as well. I'm not discrediting it. It's just like when I read it, I was just like, I don't know. But another theory comes from when the Indian glass is also still in India. Manufacturing business started to boom because of the British East India Company. They started exporting glass to India, and so that would have like given people the materials to actually kind of make these, whereas before they didn't, or they were using other types or different processes. Like, this was in the 1600s, like I said, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, but I do need to do an episode on the British East India Company, because when you look at those people, like the Roman Empire, there are just a lot of modern ideas and inventions that come from that company. Company in air quotes. They, like I've said before, they were basically like the world's first like military industrial complex of like a thing where it was like everybody. It was, well, I mean, you could look at them or like really like the Holy Church, or like the Catholic Church, but yeah, I guess they might have been the first, because you count the knights. If you count the knights, then they have like a military, which is pretty wild to think of your religion having a military. I'm getting off topic, but back to hookah. The term hookah is derived from the word haka, which means pot, jar, or cavity, hollow. From there, it spread to Iran, where people began smoking ajami. All these words are pretty cool, which is a flavorless, and I'm probably mispronouncing them, but it's a flavorless but strong type of tobacco. And the Ottoman Empire also helped fuel the spread of hookah. There is another theory of who had the first bong. So that's why I said when I was like, oh, and then the Indians were like, oh, in here, we made, and then, then you get the hookah. It's like, it all just seems a little too happenstance for me to just say that's the way it happened. But once again, I don't know. Like I said, there's another theory, and this is a little hard to believe, but it's said that the first bongs came from Africa, and there is no concrete evidence, but they say that the Africans all over the continent use bowls of water to smoke cannabis, which, I mean, it's not that crazy. When we talked about the Asian people who were using similar processes, I guess. Now, what the Africans what they do is actually, and this is pretty wild. I have never seen anything like this in my life. They smoke out of the ground. They have what are called ground pipes, and I'll definitely put a picture of that up on the Twitter page. Like, basically, what they do is they dig like two holes, like one hole to put like the weed into, and then another hole to basically smoke out of, which is a smaller hole, and they do like a channel, almost like a tunnel between the two, right? And then they just light it like you would like a bowl or any sort of like type thing, and like literally it's like you're smoking out of the earth. And it never even crossed my mind. When I read it, I literally thought, I was like, that's okay, that can't be true. And I stopped what I was doing and I looked up pictures of it, and I was like, wow. And like you can look it up, like you can Google like earth pipe or whatever, and it'll come up and you'll see it, and it's just like, wow. Like, I don't know if it's just it's astonishing to everyone else as it is to me, but I mean, these people are smoking out of the ground. Has it crossed anybody else's mind? Not mine before. But yeah, there are a lot of claims of fame when it comes to creating the first bong. After reading most of the internet, right? Of course, I can say I believe that the Scythian tribe is the rightful creator. Although if your first pipe is one you made from the ground, that technically, the technology is like millions of years old and is almost undefeated. And that is how bongs happened.
And now it's time for the roundup. The roundup. The roundup. And we're going to round it up.
The Scythian tribe had the first bongs in history, and they were gold. They also gave us the word for cannabis. Their practices spread to both Europe and Asia, and Indians have a pretty good handle on modernizing water pipe smoking devices, either because of the Portuguese merchants or the British East India Company. Things I didn't know before, and now I know them. never heard of these things. What are they? Yeah, so I didn't have too many things that I didn't know before. Not that I knew everything about like bongs and weed and stuff like that, but it's more just like there was nothing that really stuck out to me while I was doing this research besides the fact of those African earth pipes, which I just had to mention again because honestly, I was sitting here with the mic off, just talking to myself about how crazy that was, and I was like, you should probably just press record because yeah, I mean, while it's something that's because usually the format of this segment is something that I didn't know before that I didn't mention in the previous segment. But when thinking about it and just trying to keep it 100, I was like, nothing else was really that mind blowing. The gold bongs from the Scythian tribe, that was pretty wild. That they were doing that in Siberia all that time ago. But really, really, when you think about the idea of someone just like digging 2 holes in the earth and using that as a smoking device, I mean, color me mind blown. And so that has been another episode of How Did That Happen? I appreciate you guys tuning in. Always press and play. And I do want to say thank you for the love that I received when I put the post out a couple weeks ago saying that I wasn't going to be doing an episode. Just to see that anybody cared was actually really nice. So I just wanted to go ahead and mention that because I try to always be honest on here with you guys. But yeah, so I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.